The receipt fluttered from her purse like a confession. David Carter stared at the paper in his hand. Identical anniversary roses purchased 2 weeks earlier. The note reading, "To my real soulmate," in handwriting that wasn't his. The expensive paper burned his fingers as he stepped into the cool night air of their Beverly Hills estate. The garden he'd built for their 10th anniversary now framed a different scene. Under the twinkling lights, his wife Miranda clung to her yoga instructor, Jake. Their embrace wasn't passionate, it was comfortable, familiar. Miranda's fingers traced the same path along Jake's jawline that she used to trace on David's during their early dates. Her laughter floated across the rose bushes. That same breathy giggle she'd had when they got engaged. Now it sounded like broken glass. When she finally noticed David watching, her smile didn't fade. It simply shifted. The guilt lasted only a second before her expression turned calculating. David didn't move. His hands stayed in his pockets, fingers brushing the Swiss Army knife he always carried. The knife he'd used to cut the ribbon at their first business together. He plucked a single white rose, Miranda's favorite, from the bush beside him. The stem snapped clean. Inside the house, the party continued. Laughter and jazz music covered the sound of David opening Miranda's laptop. Her password hadn't changed, still their wedding date. The betrayal unfolded in pixels, hotel confirmations charged to their joint account, texts planning rendezvous during business trips, even photos of Jake wearing David's Rolex. The most damning evidence came from their security system. David fast-forwarded through weeks of footage showing Jake arriving within minutes of his own departures. He saved the clearest clips to a flash drive labeled Project Phoenix. At breakfast next morning, Miranda chatted about redecorating the guest house. David stirred her coffee, 2 sugars, cream, just like always. "By the way," he said casually, "I'm transferring some investments today. Need your signature." She signed without reading. The papers weren't investment forms, but legal documents, quietly removing her from their LLCs. The notary arrived an hour after she left for her spa day at the same resort where Jake had booked a room. David's revenge would be colder than her betrayal. He wouldn't scream or cry. He'd dismantle their life together piece by piece, leaving Miranda with nothing but the consequences of her choices. The rose he'd taken from the garden lay on his desk, petals already turning brown at the edges by sunset. David had frozen 3 bank accounts, canceled her credit cards, and changed the locks on their vacation home. Phase 1 was complete. He poured himself a whiskey and opened his laptop to review the security footage again. This time, he noticed something new. Miranda handing Jake an envelope from David's safe. The game had just gotten more interesting. The morning fog clung to the San Francisco skyline as Robert Langford sat in his home office, staring at the damning evidence spread across his mahogany desk. The printed bank statements formed a mosaic of betrayal, each highlighted transaction in blood red, marker telling its own story of deception. The $1,850 charge at the Azure Hotel on their anniversary. The $3,200 spa day when Claire claimed she was visiting her sick mother. The $15,000 wire transferred to an account simply labeled PT Fitness, her personal trainer, Paul's business. Robert's fingers trembled slightly as he dialed the number for the private investigator. "I need visual confirmation," he told the gruff voice on the other end. "Room 412 at the Azure, tonight." While Claire showered, Robert accessed her email. It took only 3 attempts to guess her password, their dead golden retriever's name, followed by 123. The inbox revealed everything. "Can't wait for our Maldives getaway next month. P.S. Use the corporate Amex. Robert never checks those statements. Sent to paulthompson@gmail.com. Robert's jaw clenched. The Maldives trip she'd begged him to take for their anniversary, the one he'd canceled because of an important merger. Now he understood why she'd been so understanding about the cancellation. The PI's photos arrived at 2:17 a.m., Claire in a sheer robe, pouring champagne for Paul in the hotel room Robert's money had paid for. Claire's hand on Paul's thigh at the hotel bar. The final shot, Paul carrying Claire into the bedroom, her legs wrapped around his waist with practiced ease. Robert didn't sleep. Instead, he drafted an elaborate trap. A fake email from a luxury travel agency offering a free Maldives retreat for valued corporate clients. He made sure it went to both Claire and Paul's inboxes. 3 days later, Robert watched through narrowed eyes as Claire packed her suitcase. "Work retreat in New York," she said, kissing his cheek. "Back on Sunday." The resort confirmation hit. Their shared LLC email at 3:42 p.m. 2 first-class tickets to the Maldives. The overwater bungalow upgrade. The couple's massage package. all charged to their business account. Robert forwarded the receipt to Claire's most important client, Jonathan Whitmore, with a simple message. Is this how Langford and Associates funds extramarital affairs? Heh? CC'd the entire board for good measure. The next morning, Robert met with his divorce attorney. I want to file under adultery clauses, he said, sliding the dossier of evidence across the table. Photos, bank statements, even the security footage from their home gym where Claire and Paul had gotten creative with the yoga mats. While Claire sunbathed in the Maldives, Robert quietly transferred assets. The Napa vineyard to an offshore holding company, the Tesla stock to his brother's trust, the beach house to his mother's name. Every move calculated, untraceable. On Monday morning, Claire returned to chaos. Her office keycard didn't work. Her company email had been deactivated. 37 missed calls from Jonathan Whitmore. Robert sat calmly in their breakfast nook, sipping black coffee. Good trip, darling? He asked, watching the color drain from her face as she saw the divorce papers on the table beside her untouched. Breakfast thought the real fun was just beginning. The grand ballroom of the Ritz-Carlton shimmered with crystal and false smiles. Victoria Langford adjusted her diamond earrings in the hallway mirror, the same pair her husband Richard had gifted her last Christmas. Tonight, her 40th birthday gala would be unforgettable, just not in the way she planned. Richard checked. His watch 8:17 p.m., right on schedule. He nodded to the AV technician hidden in the shadows. The massive projector screen behind the champagne fountain flickered to life. Gasps rippled through the crowd as the first image appeared. Victoria and her tennis coach, Derek, tangled in the pool house chaise lounge. The timestamp read last Thursday when Richard was supposedly at his investor meeting in Chicago. The footage kept rolling, Victoria whispering to her sister, Richard's too busy counting money to notice what's missing from our accounts. Derek's text message flashing on screen. When are you dumping that old man? The prenup's bullshit anyway. Victoria's champagne flute shattered on the marble floor. Her father, the retired judge, turned ashen and stumbled into the rose arrangement. The room erupted in chaos. Then came the piece de resistance. Derek's wife, a petite brunette in a red dress, marched up to Victoria and delivered a slap that echoed off the vaulted ceilings. This is for destroying two families, she hissed, handing Richard a USB drive before storming out. Victoria's manicured hands trembled as she grabbed Richard's arm. You're humiliating me in front of everyone? Richard sipped his Woodford Reserve. Ice cubes clinking. No, darling. You did that when you fucked Derek in our home. His voice carried just enough for the nearest tables to hear. The screen changed again, showing bank transfers Victoria had made to Derek's failing gem. $500,000 of marital funds. The final blow came with the video of Victoria explaining to Derek how to manipulate Richard into signing revised estate documents. As Victoria fled in tears, Richard's lawyer materialized at his side. The papers are ready for filing Monday. With this evidence, she won't get a dime beyond what the law absolutely requires. Richard allowed himself one small smile. Phase 1 was complete. Now came the real reckoning, the quiet dismantling of Victoria's entire world. Starting with that USB drive from Derek's wife, which contained something even more valuable than infidelity proof, Victoria's secret offshore accounts. The band struck up, a jazz standard as waiters circulated with fresh trays of canapes. Life, like revenge, would go on. Just not for Victoria. Ring. The judge had awarded him everything. The Pacific Heights mansion, the Napa vineyard, even her beloved Porsche 911. The LLC they built together now belonged to him alone, an 80% stake that would fund his new life. Across town, Victoria sat in a cramped office above her cousin's pawn shop, staring at the California Real Estate Board's revocation notice. The fraud charges stemming from those falsified client expense reports had ended her career. Her Laubaudens clicked against the stained concrete as she sorted through used jewelry, the irony not lost on her. Derek's downfall came faster. The leaked emails showing him sleeping with 3 wealthy clients, all married, had gone viral. In their gated community, his gin closed within weeks. Richard's last sighting of him, pumping gas at a 76 station in Sacramento, his once perfect hair now streaked with gray. On the first cool evening of autumn, Richard built a fire in the marble fireplace Victoria had insisted on installing. One by one, he fed her designer wardrobe to the flames. The Chanel suit from Paris, the Dolce wrap dress she'd worn to their anniversary dinner. The flames turned silk to smoke, just as Victoria's lies had turned their marriage to ashdot, the ring went last. That gaudy emerald she'd flaunted with Derek. Richard held it over the firelight, watching the stone catch sparks like it had once caught everyone's attention. For a moment, he considered keeping it a trophy of his victory. Then he let it drop. The gold band melted first. His phone buzzed a text from his lawyer. The offshore accounts Victoria had hidden in the Caymans. Frozen, the IRS had taken notice. Richard poured 2 fingers of Macallan, toasting the portrait of them still hanging in the foyer. The frame would make excellent kindling tomorrow. The doorbell rang. A courier handed him a thick envelope, the finalized paperwork for Langford Ventures, his new development firm. The logo featured a phoenix rising from flames. Richard smiled. Rebuilding always started with demolition. The emerald ring melted into the flames as Richard sipped his whiskey, victorious. But was he right? To destroy Victoria's entire life? He went too far. No one deserves that kind of humiliation. She betrayed him first. Every move was justified. I would have exposed her sooner. Comment below, what would you have done? Stay tuned for our next story, where a wife discovers her husband's secret family. The revenge? Even colder. Want more jaw-dropping karma? Smash that like button and subscribe for twists you won't see coming.